Bobby shifts his weight in line outside the Apple store at the mall in Scottsdale. It's 8:14 in the morning. The glass doors won't open for another 16 minutes, and there are already 30 people ahead of him. In his hand is a coffee he paid $6.75 for. In his pocket is a phone he paid $999 for just 2 years ago. Today he's here to spend $1,199 replacing it. He scrolls through the specs again on the store's website, while the line slowly inches forward. Better camera. Slightly faster chip. New titanium frame. The phone in his pocket vibrates. A text from his sister. Running late. Can you pick up mom's prescription? Bobby taps the screen. The message opens instantly. Battery, 84%. Storage, plenty left. The camera still takes photos sharp enough that Instagram compresses them anyway. Behind him, someone says, "Man, this year's model is insane." Bobby nods politely. Then he looks back down at his phone, the one that still works perfectly, and for a brief second a strange thought crosses his mind. Nothing about this device has actually gotten worse. But somehow, it suddenly feels old. And that feeling is exactly the point. Hey, I'm Brian, and I spend a probably unhealthy amount of time thinking about the invisible systems that quietly drain our money, especially the ones that feel completely normal. If you have ever stood in line for a new phone, upgraded a laptop that still worked, or felt that weird itch when a company announces the next generation of something you already own, you've experienced what I call the upgrade illusion. The upgrade illusion is simple. Tech companies don't actually need to make your old device worse. They just need to make you feel like it is. And once you see how that system works, the psychology, the timing, the money behind it, you will never look at new tech launches the same way again. So if you enjoy videos that treat personal finance like a form of investigative journalism, consider subscribing. Think of it as peer review. Because today we're pulling apart the upgrade illusion, and once you see it, it's impossible to unsee. Now, to understand the upgrade illusion, you have to understand the machinery behind it. Because this isn't random. It's a system, a very profitable one. And it operates through 3 specific mechanisms that quietly reshape how you experience the devices you already own. The first mechanism is software obsolescence. Every year, major tech companies release a new operating system, new animations, new features, new security layers. On paper, it's progress. But those updates are primarily designed for new hardware, faster processors, larger memory pools, newer battery systems. Your older device gets the same update, but it was never the target machine. The result is subtle. Apps open a little slower. The keyboard lags half a second longer. The battery drains slightly faster. Nothing catastrophic. Just enough friction to make the experience feel heavier. Psychologists call this expectation contrast. When something you once experienced as fast becomes slightly slower, the difference feels dramatic, even when the absolute change is small. And sometimes the slowdowns aren't accidental. In 2017, it was revealed that Apple intentionally slowed older iPhones through software updates in order to prevent aging batteries from causing random shutdowns. The company later agreed to pay $500 million in a class action settlement in the United States over the practice. Apple said the goal was stability. Critics argued it nudged consumers toward upgrades. Both things can be true. But the important point is this: software updates change how your device feels to use. And once that feeling shifts, the upgrade illusion begins doing its work. Because the device didn't actually become obsolete. It just started feeling that way. Now the second mechanism is hardware obsolescence. This one is less about software and more about physical design. Over the last decade, consumer electronics have become dramatically harder to repair. Batteries are glued instead of screwed in. Screens are fused to frames. Components require proprietary tools. Replacement parts are often locked behind manufacturer authorization systems. Organizations like iFixit, which studies repairability across electronics, have documented a steady decline in repair scores for many modern devices over the past decade. And that matters because the most common failure point in smartphones isn't the processor or the camera. It's the battery. Lithium-ion batteries naturally degrade over time. According to Battery University, Most smartphone batteries drop to around 80% capacity after roughly 500 charge cycles, which for many people is about 2 years of daily use. At that point, the phone still works, but the battery drains faster. Now here's where the math gets interesting. Replacing a battery often costs between $70 and $120 depending on the device. But if the phone is difficult to open, if authorized repairs are limited, if the process feels complicated, many consumers simply skip the repair and buy a new phone instead. A $90 maintenance problem quietly becomes a $1,199 purchase. Not because the technology failed, but because the system made repair feel inconvenient. And that's exactly how the upgrade illusion compounds. If you're new here and just subscribed, comment your name below. I read every comment and shout out new subscribers in my next video. I do appreciate you joining me on this finance journey. But the third mechanism, and the most psychologically manipulative of them all, is the annual release cycle. Because this one doesn't rely on software. It doesn't rely on hardware failure. It relies on time. Every September, every October, every year, the keynote begins. Dramatic lighting, polished demo videos, words like breakthrough, next generation, revolutionary. And suddenly millions of perfectly functional devices feel like they belong to a different era. Nothing about your phone changed overnight. The camera didn't suddenly get worse. The screen didn't suddenly lose pixels. Your apps didn't suddenly stop working. But a new reference point was introduced. And psychologically, that matters. Behavioral economists call this reference shift. When a new benchmark appears, the previous one immediately feels inferior, even if the difference is small. The tech industry has mastered this effect by creating predictable upgrade rituals. Researchers at the Consumer Technology Association, 2022, estimate that the average American household now spends about $1,700 per year on consumer electronics, phones, tablets, laptops, wearables, accessories. But the more revealing detail is upgrade timing. For smartphones, the average replacement cycle used to be around 3 to 4 years in the early 2010s. Today, many consumers upgrade every 2 to 3 years, largely synchronized with new release events. Which means companies don't just sell devices. They sell anticipation. A calendar-driven feeling that something newer, and therefore better, is always just around the corner. And once your brain starts measuring your current device against what was just announced, the upgrade illusion reaches its final form. Your device isn't compared to what you actually need. It's compared to what just launched. And that comparison is almost impossible to win. Now at this point, you might be thinking something completely reasonable. Okay, sure. Maybe the industry nudges upgrades. But newer technology actually is better, right? Yes, technically. But here's where the math of the upgrade illusion becomes interesting. Because better and noticeably better in everyday life are not the same thing. Take a simple example. Compare the iPhone 12 released in 2020 to the iPhone 15 released in 2023. On paper, the improvements look significant. The processor is faster. The camera sensor is larger. The graphics performance is higher. But in daily use, texting, maps, social media, photos, the functional difference is surprisingly small. In blind usability tests conducted by PCMag in 2023, many users struggled to consistently distinguish performance differences between recent smartphone generations during normal tasks. Why? Because modern smartphones crossed the good enough threshold years ago. Once a device loads apps instantly, streams videos smoothly, and takes high-resolution photos, each additional generation delivers smaller perceptible improvements. Yet the price resets to premium levels every year. Now here's the financial twist. Let's say someone skips 2 upgrade cycles and keeps their phone for 5 years instead of 2. Instead of paying $1,199 every upgrade cycle, they might pay $400 for a refurbished model later, or simply replace the battery for $89 and keep going. That single delay can save $800 to $1,000 on one purchase. And once you start repeating that decision over decades, the numbers get much more interesting. Because the upgrade illusion isn't just about gadgets. It's about lifetime financial drift. And the difference between two people making slightly different upgrade decisions over 30 years is far larger than most people realize. Which brings us to a simple comparison. Two people, same income, same technology needs, but two completely different financial outcomes. So let's make this concrete. Imagine two people, same job, same income, same technology needs. The only difference is how they respond to the upgrade illusion. Person A upgrades frequently. Every 2 years, they buy the newest flagship phone for about $1,199. They replace laptops every 4 to 5 years. They add smartwatches, earbuds, tablets, often at full retail price. Nothing extreme, just normal consumer behavior. And according to the Consumer Technology Association, 2022, the average American household spends about $1,700 per year on consumer electronics. Over 40 working years, that adds up to roughly $68,000 spent on gadgets. Now meet Person B. Person B still uses technology constantly. Same apps, same productivity, same social media, but they refuse to play the upgrade illusion game. They keep phones for 5 years instead of 2. They replace batteries instead of replacing the device. They buy refurbished laptops that are 2 generations behind. As a result, their electronics spending averages closer to $900 per year. That difference, about $800 per year, doesn't sound life-changing at first. But here's where the math becomes interesting. Instead of spending that $800 every year, Person B invests it. Historically, the S&P 500 has averaged roughly 8% annual returns over long time horizons, according to Morningstar's Long-Term Market Studies, 2023. And compound growth turns small differences into enormous ones. A equals P, 1 plus R, caret T. Where AAA is the future value, PPP is the yearly investment, RRR is the return rate, and TTT is time. Over 30 years, investing $800 per year at an 8% return grows to roughly $90,000. Stretch that to 40 years, and it approaches $220,000. All from one behavioral difference. Not buying slightly newer versions of things that already worked. Same technology, same lifestyle, completely different financial trajectory. That is the real price of the upgrade illusion. But money isn't the only cost hiding inside the upgrade illusion. There's another dimension most consumers never see. The environmental one. According to the United Nations Global E-Waste Monitor, 2020, the world now generates over 50 million metric tons of electronic waste every year, making it one of the fastest-growing waste streams on the planet. Smartphones are a small part of that weight, but a massive part of the manufacturing footprint. Producing a single smartphone generates roughly 70 kilograms of CO2 emissions, according to life cycle analyses cited by the European Environmental Bureau, 2019. And here's the surprising detail. Most of that environmental cost happens before you ever turn the device on. Mining rare earth minerals, manufacturing processors, global supply chains, which means the most environmentally responsible thing you can do with a smartphone is keep using it for as long as possible. But the upgrade illusion flips that logic upside down. It turns keeping a perfectly functional device into something that feels outdated, even irresponsible socially, like you're falling behind. But that pressure isn't natural. It's engineered. And once you see that, the next step becomes obvious. You stop playing the system and start using technology on your terms instead. Once you understand the upgrade illusion, the goal isn't to reject technology. Technology is incredibly useful. The goal is to stop letting the upgrade cycle make decisions for you. And there are 4 simple ways to do that starting today. The first step is run the need audit. Before buying any new device, pause and ask a very specific question. What exactly can't my current device do? Not what it does slower. Not what the new model does slightly better. What task actually fails? Most people struggle to answer that question honestly. Because the truth is their phone still sends messages instantly, still runs every app they need, still takes photos good enough that social media compresses them anyway. If a device still performs your real tasks, the upgrade isn't solving a problem. It's satisfying the upgrade illusion. The second step is repair before replace. Most devices don't fail completely. They degrade in predictable ways. Batteries weaken, screens crack, charging ports wear out, and those are reparable problems. For example, replacing a smartphone battery typically costs between $70 and $120 depending on the model. Compare that with spending $1,199 on a new flagship phone. That's the difference between maintenance and replacement. One preserves value. The other restarts the entire spending cycle. The third step is by refurbished first. A 2-year-old flagship device is often 90% as capable as the newest model, but costs 40 to 60% less. Major retailers and certified refurbishers test, clean, and replace worn components before resale, which means someone else already absorbed the steepest depreciation. You get the functionality. They paid the marketing tax. And the fourth step is set upgrade rules, not marketing deadlines. Companies release products on predictable annual schedules because it maximizes revenue. But your upgrade timeline doesn't need to follow theirs. Instead, set a personal rule. Maybe 5 years for phones, 7 years for laptops. Right now, you probably see yourself as someone who's just keeping up with technology, staying current, using the best tools available. But once you understand the upgrade illusion, something shifts. Being good with tech stops meaning buying the newest thing. It starts meaning seeing through the system designed to sell it to you. And that brings us back to Bobby, standing outside that store, holding a perfectly functional phone, about to spend $1,199 on something slightly newer. Bobby isn't irrational. He's responding exactly the way the system was designed to make him respond. Software friction, repair barriers, annual hype cycles, all working together to make a device that still works feel obsolete. That's the upgrade illusion. Your phone didn't suddenly become worse. Your reference point changed. And once you see that, the decision becomes simple. You stop upgrading because something new appeared. You upgrade when something actually stops working. That single shift, repeated over years, can quietly change your finances, your consumption habits, and even your environmental footprint. So if you found this breakdown useful, hit like and subscribe. Think of it as peer review for financial common sense. And in the next video, we're going to investigate another everyday system most people never question.